taking dance classes would be like doing all of those.
Yeah, or you know, if you had to pick one sport, it'd almost be like training to play all the different positions on a football team.
Or something like that, yeah.
Which very few kids do. I mean, maybe, you know, when they're really young, but
right.
by a year or two into football, you end up in an area.
Right.
know?
I mean, ballet is the base of all dance. Mm-hmm. That's where it originated from. That's where it starts. That's kind of the concept behind all dance styles.
Right.
Like, you learn a plie in ballet. That's how you bend your knees. It's called a plie. You're going to do that in tap. You're going to do it in all the different styles of class. So, I don't know. I feel like dance does encompass a lot more styles than like a one sport activity would.
Right. You know, and as you pointed out, it's good for training. It's one of the things that I think people used to think it's funnier than now, but the number of professional athletes like football players, basketball players who take dance classes.
Well, did you know that dancers are less likely to have knee injuries than basketball players? Because sports like basketball, you're taught to jump. You're not taught how to land.
Right.
In dance, you're taught both.
Right. That's
like
cool. Yeah.
taking care of your body and listening to your body and understanding the mechanics of how it works, how your muscles, how your bones should align. I was doing it last night with you. You were asking me about first position. I was like, it has to be here, and that way your knees align and your hip joints are here and your back straight. But there's a lot of understanding of how the body works so that as a dancer, you learn to take care of yourself.
Right.
You learn to listen to your body when something's out of line or something's wrong. You can say, okay, I need to work on this. Whereas, you know, sports, it's like, oh, jump high, run fast, do this. It's all about what you're doing. And like how many points you score rather than what is your body doing.
Right. Technique matters, but, you know, the score matters more sometimes. And I think that's the thing that has changed, or hopefully is changing in youth sports, that, you know, the whole point is just to learn, to get better, to build skills and athleticism and whatever else. So,
well, like, when you're in a sport and your coach says run, do they tell you how to run?
Only if you have a good coach.
You know what I mean? Like, there's like, I can tell a kid to jump, but I'm also going to tell them they need to bend their knees and lift your back and stretch up high and point your toes. And there's like all these other aspects of it. It's not just a jump.
Right. I mean, there's always technique in those other things, but I think maybe we just assume the basic, you know, run, jump, push, you know, those things you just assume you can do.
Like when you push, where does it come from?
Yeah.
Like in dance, when you lift your arm, where does that come from?
Yeah.
And that's like a concept you think of. It comes from like your core, the center.
Yeah. Right.
What makes your arm move?
That's most athletics. You know? Like, everything basically comes from your legs and your hips, you know. I mean, not to say that no one ever pushes or has to push.
Not really good. It should all come from your core.
Yeah, I don't know. I think a lot about.
I feel like it should.
Assessing,
I don't know.
You know, in sports that I've played and coached, one of the easiest things to look at to figure out how athletic a person is, regardless of how fast they are or whatever else, is when you get in an athletic position. You know, sort of feet shoulder width apart. You know, you squat a little bit. Yeah. Look at who bends their knees versus who bends their hips. If when you squat down a little bit, it should mostly be in your knees. And if you're a hip bender, you're a person where your knees bend a little, but you really roll your body forward. That's a terrible way to be. You're off balance. You're putting stress in your back. You're putting stress in your knees. All this kind of stuff. Yeah. So it's something, but that's not something I was ever taught as a kid.
Right.
That's something that I learned much later. Yeah. As I was coaching, I was trying to figure out techniques.
And so this is a really big part of my teaching philosophy is to avoid that. It's to teach children and adults, whoever comes to my classes, how to do it initially the right way. Because it is easier to teach it the right way first than to later try to fix something.
It's easier to make a good habit than to break a bad one.
Yes. Okay, yeah, there you go. That's exactly it. Because once a student develops a bad habit, correcting it and fixing it just takes so much longer, so much time, because it's unnatural to them. They don't understand it. They've been doing it a certain way for so long that when you go to fix it, it's terrible. So in dance, it's important to learn it exactly like the right way. Yeah, they're two, but guess what? I'm going to teach them that their knees need to go over their toes when they bend them.
Right. So
when you stand on your toes, you stand on the ball of your foot. Like
when you think about your dance education, and I don't mean for you to praise or pick on your own teachers, but how well were those things taught to you? Like how many bad habits did you have to break later on versus how strong was the foundation for you personally?
My foundation was strong. My foundation was really good. I don't think I had anything that really stood out that needed fixing. There's one thing that when I got to college, I realized I did not have any kind of terminology education. I didn't know how to spell the words. I didn't know what they meant.
Like, so you mean like you didn't know the word, like if your instructor said...
Dégagé. Okay. I knew what the step was. Yeah. I didn't know how to spell it. I didn't know the meaning behind it.
So, okay, so...
there's like funny. A whole nother level of... Because it's all French.
Right.
I understand.
That's hilarious.
And so I try to include that in my classes.
Like hear the words.
Because the meaning of the word actually helps you understand how the steps should be done.
Right.
So dégagé means to throw.
Mm-hmm.
Dégagé. So it's literally throwing your leg out and in.
Okay.
I didn't know that. I thought I just put my leg out and put it back in.
Right.
The concept of throwing helps you
like the subtlety of
transfer
the motion,
that into your muscles in your body and how it's actually done.
Yeah. It's like the reverse that I get in English classes or that I've had is in a subject that's sort of built on reading.
Yeah.
There's so many times, even now I do it all the time, where I've read a word a bunch and I know what it means or I've figured out close enough. And then I try to use the word and I say it wrong. Oh. Right? Because while I know the word, I actually don't know how it's pronounced because I've never heard someone say it. I've only ever seen it in print. You're almost in the opposite situation where you've heard the word.
Oh, yeah.
But you've never seen it necessarily
I've never
written down.
it. I've never...
So I don't know how to spell it. I don't technically know what it means.
Right.
You know?
But I know how to demonstrate it.
Right.
Like, it's just... Yeah.
Yeah, it's like that's really funny, like the limitations that sometimes pop up in those ways.